Hello, my Facebook family. Thank you so much for joining me today. Guys, I'm really excited for this episode because last week we started the episode that I have wanted to do for so long on restorative voting rights for people who have been formerly incarcerated. It's I don't know if it's only me, but it seems like it's so hard to get some really good, solid information from reliable sources on exactly what people need to do, what steps they need to take in order to register to vote once they have been fully discharged from their parole. I don't know why that information is not out there. I don't know why it's so absolutely it's almost like it's hush hush. But today, I've got some experts who are going to speak on that issue and give us the step by step directions on what people need to look for, what they need to request in order to go ahead and start getting their rights restored. Well, their rights are already restored, but being able to get the information in a way that's easy to understand and a way that they can go ahead and get things expedited, because it shouldn't be like jumping through a million hoops trying to do this. Now, let me say this. I've got three gentlemen here today, and they have one thing in common, but their backgrounds are completely different. And I really love having them here because we met in all different ways. I'm going to tell you their names first, and then I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, because I could not do them justice in introducing them and giving them the accolades that they need to have, because I'm just blessed to be able to have them here today. The gentleman, and I'm going to, every week I do this, guys. My right and my left is going to look different for y'all on there. But to my right is Kyle Matthews. To my left is Damion Walker. And to my left shoulder is Joel Hall. And I'm going to start with Kyle. Kyle, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and about your business?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. As Ms. Crystal stated, my name is Kyle Matthews. I am a resident of Houston, Texas. I've been here since 1981. I came here when I was 7, and I'm honored to have been invited onto the Ms. Crystal's platform to speak about voting rights in the formerly incarcerated. So I did 23 years and 7 months on a 40-year sentence, and was fortunate enough to have a father who schooled me on the importance of having excellent credit before I came home. So before I actually left prison, I had a business platform set up for myself. And through him, and with some help from friends and relatives, I was able to come home, have a business established where we help educate people on the importance of having excellent credit. Because people think just having excellent credit helps you get a better rate on your credit cards, your cars, your homes, insurance premiums, and whatnot. People don't realize your employment status can be affected by bad credit scores. You can actually be terminated from your employment, or you won't get the job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kyle. I'm going to switch it over to Damion here now. And I'm going to tell you, Damion's sister, uh, uh, you know, they have such humility. She said, my brother is going to come with Kyle onto the show, and he's got some good information too. She didn't tell me who her brother was. Okay, she said, she just told me his name, and I did my own background research, and I said, your brother is the authority on what we're talking about today. Thank you so much for asking him to come on. So, Damion, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Crystal. Thank you for having me. Damion is John Walker. I was incarcerated for 17 years. I got incarcerated at the age of 16, and I was released at the age of 33. So I've been home right now. It'll be 12 years in July. And I think that just having the opportunity to be out here, get education from the University of Houston. But my current work is at the Harris County Public Defender's Office. But my business is Cognitive Justice International. It's a nonprofit that I was able to start, and we focus on solutions about justice issues. So we just had our first conference in December, and we focused on youth justice, kids aging out of foster care and immigration youth.
Okay, awesome. And my guest to my over my left shoulder. It's interesting the way that we actually connected. But last week's show that we were on, we were promoting last week's show, and my next guest, he messaged and told us what he thought about what we were doing. And introduce yourself, my next guest.
Anyway, my name is Joel Hall. I'm originally from Jamaica, Queens, New York. I was a bad boy in the '90s. You know what I'm saying? I did 15 Tight. Came out in May. No, actually, yeah. I just finished parole in May of last year, 2021. Um, was a stick up kid. You know what I'm saying? Made some bad choices. You know what I mean? But since I've been home, um, I've been doing some personal training. I have a little small business called Just Simon Creations. I do crafting, I do wood sculpturing, and I do some a little mentoring, especially with the youth. You know what I mean? So um, I want to say this. Uh, I apologize, Miss.
That's okay. I want you to tell everybody what you said when you heard what we were doing.
Um, and it's my bad because it's like I had got a little letter in the, I guess it was too much coffee. You know what I mean? Because I drink coffee. That's but when you make parole and you discharge, I should say, I discharged 2000 of 2021 of last year, May 19th, and I received a letter from parole indicating that I have my voting rights
Restored. Right.
Now, mind you, I didn't, you know, never believed that inmates can actually, former inmates can actually can vote. You know what I mean? But
a lot of people feel exactly that way.
And I about 2 weeks ago, I had got this in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
This is not my discharge form. This right here is jury duty. So
So we know you legit now.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say ignorant or ignorant. It's
Mm-hmm.
more like I just felt like a jackass. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was my bad. I had to, because hey, I'm a man. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I wanted to publicly apologize to the sister and let her know, hey,
And I told you, Joel, it is no hard feelings, but basically this is what Joel said when we said we are going to do this show, and what we're going to figure out is exactly the steps people need to take. 1, 2, 3. We don't want to draw it out. We don't want to give anything extra. We want to tell people exactly the steps they need to take in order to register to vote and be well vetted to register to vote when they go down and fill out that voter registration form. And Joel said, BS, but he said the real thing. And he messaged me, and he not only did he say BS, he said BS, and he had this angry little face. It was the red one that was all scrunched up. And I said, oh my goodness, my feelings were kind of hurt. I said, well, let me at least message him back. So I messaged Joel back, and I said, Joel, I'm so sorry that you don't feel that it's appropriate for ex-offenders who have paid their debt to society to be able to have the right to vote. And Joe said, he said, I'm so sorry. I wasn't really sure exactly what you guys were getting at, but I apologize. No, I don't feel that way. I said, but Joel, listen, a lot of people sit in his exact shoes when they hear every person, I'm going to say politician, because I did run for office not too long ago, but people say that they want to do certain things and they want to help certain communities for various reasons. I'm not running for anything right now, but I have a personal reason why I want to make sure that the communities of ex-offenders that I have been able to meet, and everyone that I have been able to meet since in this last year, I can say absolutely nothing bad about anyone. I have met some of the most courageous and hardworking entrepreneurs that I've ever met in my life, and the work ethic is like none other. And like my sister said, and she's going to introduce herself in a second, but like my sister said before, a lot of times people have been forced into entrepreneurship and they just had to make it work. And everyone that I have met who is an ex-offender, who was formerly incarcerated, has been an entrepreneur, and they have, when they came home, they hit the ground running and they haven't stopped. Now, I'm not going to leave my sister out. She is back there, and I want her to introduce herself and tell us who you are, Kim. And she's always here because she's that little one sitting on my shoulder that says, wait a minute, but you got to ask them this, you got to ask them that. So, Kim, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kim Dillard. I'm blending into the background today. I didn't realize I was going to be kind of in all black. So, anyway, I'm blending into the background. But I'm going to be looking at some of the comments that are coming in, and we have a nice little audience, and we have if anybody has comments, please go ahead and let us know. I'm going to be letting Crystal know of some of the comments and having some of our guests address them.
Okay, I'm going to start with. I'm going to keep it in the exact same order that we went with. And another reason that I wanted to bring on Joel, because Joel says that he's a crafter and he does a little sculpture. And my sister was an art major. She has her degree in fine arts. And when Joel sent me the pictures of his work, it was museum quality.
It's beautiful.
It was museum
Beautiful
quality.
work.
So it wasn't just a little sculpture here or a little sculpture there, like somebody, that carved the bears out of the log. It was absolutely beautiful, very detailed. And I wanted to showcase that because people have no idea the amount of talent that people possess, and we can put a label on people, especially after they have been incarcerated, and you just stroke them with a broad brush and say, this is what they are, and this is who they'll always be. And that's not the case. And Joel said one of the things that was so striking is that he told me when I got home, instead of, because he had some really tragic things happen, and he's going to speak on that in a little bit. But he said, I took that could have been portrayed as rage or just anger, and I had to channel that into something that was going to be productive, and not just productive but creative. And to be able to see some of the things that he's created out of wood and out of resin is absolutely beautiful. But Kyle, I'm going to start with you and ask you this now. Prior to you being incarcerated, how involved were you in the voting process? Was it a big deal to you at all? You were a young man. Do young men think about that kind of stuff?
I got to vote one time before I voted for Bill Clinton.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
So that was my only experience because my mother was like, "You're old enough. You can go vote now.
Yeah.
Go vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for.
Right.
Just go vote."
Okay.
So,
Okay. Do you feel differently about voting after being incarcerated? That it's more important?
I feel like it's more important, but as we discussed last time we were here,
Right.
we have to educate the populace on how to vote
Yes.
and don't make the decision for them.
Right.
You have to take the time out to study who the candidate is,
Yes.
what their policies are, and how it will affect you and your family.
Exactly. Okay. Tell me, Damion, before you were incarcerated, had you had an opportunity to vote?
I was 16. So
You were 16?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm a history teacher, so sitting in your history classes,
I
You
knew
know, when
about
y'all-
it. Yeah, I was one of the kids that always watched the elections. I mean,
Okay.
I was a news junkie probably from 5 years old, so I knew about the
Wow.
elections and everything. But I never, I was 16, so I wasn't able to vote.
Okay, but you knew the importance of it.
Yes.
Okay, and you're from the Houston area.
Yes.
Okay. Houston area, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Now, being from the Houston area, you all went to Houston area schools. In school, when you're in high school, is it really drilled into you the importance of voting?
No.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear. How about that?
I remember in elementary school. Now I know this was 1984
Mhm.
because there were Reagan Bush stickers all over the school. I'm like, what? And I was like, Damion, I've been into the news since
Yeah.
a young age from my parents.
Yeah.
So that was being instilled back then.
Yeah.
So, and it's crazy. I remember that all these years
Reagan
later,
Bush
there were
stickers, yes.
Reagan and Bush stickers all over the school.
Wow. In the school.
Mhm.
Now, our schools are supposed to be impartial. That's interesting.
Mhm.
I'm not going to ask you where you went to school, but that's interesting to make note of that. Joel, before you were incarcerated, had you had an opportunity to vote, or did you feel that voting was important?
I didn't even acknowledge either.
Okay. Because it just really wasn't in your realm. People weren't thinking about that kind of stuff.
Right. I was
Yeah.
more like, you know, I just it was it was it was it was irrelevant. Like
Right.
it was, oh, okay. Oh yeah, that's nice. And just keep going.
Okay. Now, this is what I want to present. I want to present to you, Joel, because since we have people sitting here that are experts and they go about the business of making sure people have the right education when they go forward to register. Since you were incarcerated, since you sat in that position for the length of time that you did,
Right.
knowing that laws that are made by people that we vote into office, that really affect your life and the life of the people who will come along behind you. You have a son. Okay. Now, do you feel that voting at this phase in your life is more important than it was when you went in?
No, I do.
Now you do,
Yes.
and why?
Because I mean, you got people like yourself. I mean, that I hear on YouTube talking. You know, their positions, and they've made some moves, have made some alterations. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it may not be all the way what people actually need, but they've done something. So yeah, and I did a little background check
Yeah.
on individuals. I mean, a person can say what they want to say out of their mouth, but if your actions don't parallel what you say,
Yes,
it's null and void.
that's absolutely right. Now, with your organization, Damion, tell us a little bit about when I spoke with your sister. She said, you know, Damien's organization, they work with educating the formerly incarcerated about the importance not only of voting, but um, about the process and what needs to happen. Can you walk us through the process and make it as simple as you can? Hypothetically, I'm going to be discharged from parole in 6 months. Is there anything that I can do right now to start setting the groundwork so that when I receive that letter, like Joel received in the mail, and it says my voting rights are now restored, what steps do I take then?
Well, because it's automatic.
Excuse me. Mm-hmm.
If somebody is legally exonerated, if you are discharged, parole, or probation, it's automatic. You automatically receive your rights to vote.
Right.
So for Joel and myself, when we got the letter
Right.
From parole giving us our last paper, a voting registration card came in that packet.
See, people don't know that.
Yeah, so it's automatic. So you can, but you have to register. So your rights are automatically restored. But what you have to do is that you have to register. So you would need to get to somewhere, because you're gonna have that card. You can mail that card back and you're registered, right. Or you can have someone teach you. There was a professor at TSU, Jules. She registered me to vote.
Okay.
At TSU campus. So I went up to TSU and she wanted to register me that day. So you are automatically restored, because that's something that people don't get. Automatically, once
Exactly.
you are no longer on supervision,
In Texas, that's the law.
you automatically receive your rights back, but you have to file that card, the voter registration card.
Okay, let's say that the card came, it got put in the mail somewhere. I kept the letter. I didn't know what that card was. I just put it to the side. If I don't have the card anymore, but I've got my letter saying that I have my rights restored, what steps do I need to take? Can I go to a voter registration rally? Can I go to the post office? You know, they used to have the cards at the post office, and I can just go ahead and fill out that paperwork.
Go ahead and fill out that paperwork and turn it in.
Yes.
Make sure that your ID and everything lines up with what you
Yes.
put on that card.
Yes.
And your voting rights are restored. You're going to be able to vote in the next election.
Okay. In the next election. Now, this is something that I know that people have a question about, because we saw this on the news, and Kim can speak to this because it actually made the news in Houston, of a gentleman who thought that his rights were restored. He was excited about going to vote, and then lo and behold, there was some type of glitch, and it actually was not the case. What do people need to do if they're not sure?
They just need to make sure that they get in their file. You can get an account with the district clerk. You get in your file and see if there's any holes on you. But you also, there's a number on that card that you can call to make sure that your rights are restored. So you want to follow up. If there's any
With
questions,
the district clerk.
you can follow. You can go on the district clerk website. You can create an account yourself and see if there's any holes on you.
Okay.
But you also, there's going to be information on that card. Or you can go to the website.
Okay.
And in Harris County, which just happened, we had a big issue with the voting, thing. Contact them. I don't remember the name specifically, but you can contact them, and then they can find
HarrisVotes.org.
HarrisVotes.org. You can contact them, and they can make sure, they can look into your file and make sure.
Okay. I do have my paper that they sent, but I do not have the voter registration card. I think I'm off the paperwork now. I would not have gotten the letter if the paperwork had not been in order, correct?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that can impede? What are some of the things that can impede someone from, like Joel, for right now? He should be able to go down to the post office, fill out that card, and 3 weeks later they're going to send him his voter registration card. In theory, that should be.
Yes.
What are some of the things that could impede him from being able to go through that process seamlessly?
Basically, the only thing that I've experienced and in helping other individuals is if they're still on some sort of supervision, if there's something that they miss. Now, there may be a misspelling of name because of this person coming from prison, they may have used an alias before. So they have to make sure that there's no alias, and then that could be something that can hold them up. So they would have to go in the Texas files or the DMV or something like that. I'm not sure again.
Okay.
But if you have an alias, that's something that will hinder you from voting because you're now under a couple different names. So you want to specify which name that you registered your stuff under.
Okay. Now, see, you just said something that I never, ever would have thought about. Okay. So tell me what you're talking about. Do people go by different names?
Yeah.
Okay, you got to tell me what you're talking about, Joel.
If somebody has been arrested and they were trying to avoid being arrested and they may switch up a DAMION, it may be DAMON. I keep out the I. So now if I get arrested, the officers will put that in my file. So now I have an alias. I've created an alias for myself because I was trying to avoid. So I may say, instead of Damion Walker,
right,
I may say Damon Walter. And next thing you know, like I have this entire alias, another identity that I created for myself.
So in theory, there could be someone with 10 different names on the books. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so let me jump in right here real quick. That being the case, I know in the state of Texas, you're going to have some sort of ID
identification
in order to register to vote.
Right.
So on that ID, would that ID have your government name, or would it have an alias, or what would it have? And because you're going to need that to be able to, cross-reference it. So,
and it's gonna need to be legal. Right. What's filed in the state, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you're gonna put your government name on there, but there's a guy that I know, true story.
Yeah.
In different systems, So he's been back and forth to TDC.
Okay.
When he goes to TDC, he has an entire different name. They never changed his actual name. They never changed his name. So when he gets his paper from TDC,
Right.
it's going to say that alias name. When he comes home, his ID says is his real name. So TDC may have filed it because, again, though we got the paper, we don't know what TDC has on their file. We haven't done that much research to say, okay, how far does TDC files go into our actual files? So you just want to make sure, again, you want to get everything off of you as best as possible. So you want to make sure that there is no alias or there is no false information on your file.
Well, another question.
Yes.
Another question. If that is the case, when that paperwork is received, would it have the TDC information on there, or would it have the state of Texas driver's license information on
TDC.
there?
Mm-hmm. It's the TDC
It's gonna be
information.
TDC.
Because I have a friend right now who's trying to get his
Straight
identification.
And
He went in under an alias. He did 30 years,
Yeah.
and he's having all kinds of issues getting his proper identification because he was somebody else in prison.
Mhm.
Wow.
And when he came out here, now they can't
I'm
find
glad-
his documents.
I am glad that y'all brought that question up because that, I'm thinking last week, another one of our guests, Vaughn Taylor, was here, and he said, I'm going to be the devil's advocate. There are certain things that may come up that would impede someone. It may not just be 1, 2, and 3. And what you all have just done is absolutely verified that is something that could come up. Tell me again about what you were just saying about your friend, Kyle.
He went into prison
Yes.
under a name, did 30 years.
That was
paroled.
not his. That was not his.
That was
given.
not his given name. No.
Okay.
So when he came home, he's got all the documentations of being a ward of the state.
Got right.
So now him trying to re-identify himself
Under his given
under
name.
his given name,
Okay.
he's got a lot of obstacles he has to go through because he's basically been
Someone
I don't
else.
wanna say dead, but
Yeah.
he's not been in existence in this society in 30 years. So now they're like, well, how do we even know this is you?
Wow.
Because they can't find his birth certificate.
Okay.
Wow.
Now let me jump in one more time.
Yes.
This explains a lot
Yes.
because I know there is a great big thing in the state of Texas about making sure you have your ID
Proper ID.
in
Yes.
order to be able to register and to vote.
Yes.
Okay. And this explains a whole lot as far as number one, why that would even be a question. I just thought
Everybody
well, you go to-
had the given
yeah,
name.
you-
Your given name.
DPS, and you just give you have to give 27 different kinds of information in DPS, and you get your ID, you get your
Right.
driver's license, and that's it. But that might not be so cut and dry
Yes.
as far as the ID, information here in the state of Texas,
Yes.
especially in this case.
Mhm.
So that's news to me.
And that throws a huge monkey wrench in what I was, because things like this, I'm glad that these things are coming up because these are the kind of things that a lot of people don't know. They think, and maybe this is one of the reasons that people have not been as forthcoming with trying to go ahead and get this done. So as soon as people are, would you say as soon as people get out or as soon as people are fully discharged, they need to make sure that their name on their identification matches what is on their discharge paperwork? Or will anybody ever even see that discharge paperwork anymore if you got a driver's license?
I think it depends on like individuals like us. Like sometimes, and this is just fact, depending on if they want to be recognized as such,
Mhm.
depending on if they're actually going to want to vote or
Right.
move forward, because that's a task that you have to do. You have to go down and spend money, and you have to spend time. And if a person doesn't have transportation when they come home, that's not a priority for them. The priority is making sure that they do what parole tells them.
Okay.
So now the goal is to say, okay, do you have an alias? Let's take time out to do that. And some people don't want to do it because it's going to take time and resources that they don't have.
So it takes time and resources to change your alias back to your given name.
Obviously, because with the guy like Kyle and the guy that I know,
And it's a cost involved. It's going to be a cost involved in that, possibly.
For the documentations, I know you had to pay to get a birth certificate because I had to get mine when I came home.
Yeah.
So it's a cost involved, both
Right.
monetary and in your time.
Okay.
But I'd also like to piggyback. That man took the time to open his letter. Some people will get that letter and see the state of Texas. It's going right in the trash because they know they did. So they won't even look to see
Wow.
that they're eligible to vote.
Okay,
I
so
did. I did.
stop. No,
I
no.
registered to vote,
Yes.
and then I was going through some mail, and I pulled it out, and I saw that I had completed my sentence,
Right.
and I saw the same registration card that I did at TSU. So
Okay.
I was one that put my mail to the side and didn't even look at it.
Okay. So this is what we know. And you can probably, we asked this question last week, but you probably have more facts on this, Damion. In Harris County, if you could even give a ballpark, how many people would you say are like Joel, who may be discharged from parole every year, if you could ballpark it?
I'm gonna give you a quick story. Then I'm gonna give you that number if I remember it.
Okay.
When the presidential election was happening, Trump and Biden,
Yes.
The AKAs and the NAACP reached out to me through Julie, the professor at TSU.
Okay.
Trey the Truth wanted somebody to talk about parole.
Right.
So I went and made a quick video. Trey posted it on his Instagram.
Right.
Bun B then reposted it.
Okay.
Snoop Dogg then saw that. Snoop didn't know that he can vote. Now I'm not saying directly, right, but he was able to vote. So in the research that I did,
right,
roughly about every year, roughly about 2,000 people every year, roughly about 2,000 people in the Houston area get their rights to vote back. Roughly 2,000 people are eligible to vote that were once on supervision. Mm-hmm. In Texas, 5,000 people, I think it's 5,000 people are released to Houston alone every year from some sort of incarceration. Right. And that's a low number. Mm-hmm. That's a low number. So roughly around 2,000 people get their rights to vote back every year in Harris County alone.
Of those ones that get their rights back, could you guesstimate as to how many people actually go down and go through the process of registering?
A personal number, I literally would say 7%. A personal number. Because
wow.
I did my best to, once I found out that
yes,
I could vote. And
yes.
I talked to a lot of guys and women as well. I literally would say possibly 7%.
Okay, Kyle, Joel, Damion, do you know what a huge voting block that would be of if people understood? Let's just say 10 years, 2,000 people. Do the math.
Mm-hmm. So between 20,000 and 50,000 people, roughly,
would be eligible
in a 10-year period would be eligible. And if it's 7% of those, that's what? I'm not good at math. So 7% of those folks.
And we saying register. We're not even saying voting.
Right. That's not even
who registered and may not even vote. So that means they might be purged from the voter rolls 2 years from now. So that's an enormous amount of people that are just basically lost, who are affected by the system,
right?
But who have no input and who have no ownership of it,
and whose family is affected.
That's right. That's right. And see, that's why people need to hear what we're talking about right now, because people don't realize. Like I said, I have seen some of the most responsible, creative, and enterprising people who have been part of the formerly incarcerated group that I've met. And here's the thing. We know how different laws are being interpreted and laws are being changed around us, and they affect us heavily. Think about that voting block right there. And that's just in Harris County. Now let's take that and go to Dallas County. Let's take that and go to Bexar County, Tarrant. Think about the voting block that we could actually have if people actually were exercising that right.
I'll put it back on you. It's not about think about it. It's what does those that are coming up for election that only want to get the votes of the people, but what about the people that are actually there to educate them?
Yes.
So it has to be an education process. It can't be just because, it's time to vote, let's do it. Because that's what I ran into. That's why I got disappointed at when the presidential election came up.
Yeah.
And this was my second time voting.
Yes.
And so everybody that was out pushing for votes and did everything, was educated at that point. As soon as the presidential election was over,
it was over.
The next election, there was nothing. Up until a couple weeks ago.
It was time to, yeah.
Yeah, this one it was time to come back. So you actually forget about the blocks.
Right.
Now those that are incarcerated, we're already the quickest to be forgotten about. Though I paid property taxes, bought a couple of houses, we're the quickest to be forgotten about.
Yes.
So the voting block for us in the eyes of others doesn't count. So I'm looking through your eyes. You're continuing to say that I don't count. Though I'm
So you only count when it's time to vote. Yeah. That's basically what you're saying.
Now because people know about formerly incarcerated people can vote, now it's, oh yeah, you should have voted back then, but help us to create the information so we can get that out to individuals so they can start to register and vote now and continuously.
Okay. Absolutely. Now this is the I don't want to get too off topic because we could really talk about that. But here's the thing, you know, something like a almost like a political action committee comprised of people who may have been formerly incarcerated, actually forming some type of educational block, letting people know before they are released, not released, but before they come off of parole, the kinds of laws that are affecting them and maybe in ways that are unfair in certain communities, and how their vote could literally steer the direction of where some of these laws are headed, or change the direction for some of the laws that have been enacted recently. Okay, what do we need to do as individuals? Because it's not going to be something headed that's gonna take off from the state. It's going to be communities and individuals, because we're the ones that want to see this particular group get that type of power. Okay, what are the first steps that need to happen?
I think what you said, I never thought about it. I've complained about it to other people, but something like a PAC, something like a political action group, those individuals that actually do the work,
right?
And for us to be able to, the formerly incarcerated, but also us to be able to fund them so they can do the work. We have to put our money where our passion is. So, and the other thing is the education. Like, we have to educate, and it has to be easily accessible. It can't be hidden. When I had to figure out if I could actually vote, or when they asked me to do the video, I literally had to go and research law to do that. We don't need to research law. Let's put the link to the law, so make it accessible.
Right.
So supporting those that are actually doing the work.
Yes.
With our money, with our time, and making the information accessible. And I think that's one thing that'll be easy for us to be able to do, because now we can understand that, man, I can do it. It's not just talk. I've talked about it for the last 2 years, but it has to be accessible continuously. And those that are running for office have to also mention it as well.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, you're right. They got to mention that, because I'm like, formerly incarcerated individuals being able to vote.
Yes.
I've never heard anyone talk about that.
It's not talked about.
You know, it wasn't disclosed. You know,
right?
I mean? And it's like,
that was gonna be my next question.
They should at least tell cats before they leave prison, you know, you have the right to vote when you discharge your sentence. You know what I mean? Education. You know, let them know, and then you as an individual, you should do your research,
right,
and check it out for yourself.
Now I have something here from Lakedra. And she was saying, start the education prior to release.
Yes.
Create ambassadors within the prisons to educate one another and their families.
Yes.
So actually, people inside a prison who have that information, spreading it to other people within the prison. Apparently. Yes. And then that way, it can be something that before they even get out, they will have that knowledge base.
Yes. And I didn't realize this until I talked to someone on Saturday. And he was part of our reentry roundtable. Shout out Quincy. This is what he said. He said, Crystal, you know, there are actually, did he call it a state jails that are in and around the Houston area? I said, well, what's the difference? What's the difference? People don't know the difference between a state. He said, there are state jails, and that means that People have gone for certain types of offenses, and they may be there for a certain amount of years, but they never, those people in those places, they never have lost their voting rights. The voting rights have never been taken away. I said, well, what? I mean, how does that? So we may actually bring someone on to explain the difference and explain how that may be a different scenario than someone actually going to prison. Or you may be able to tell us, Damion, what is the difference?
I think it's state jails is people that 2 years and under.
Yeah.
Yeah, so since
So
it's
they
2 years
don't
and under,
lose their rights.
I'm not sure if they lose now, but you can't vote while you're on supervision. That's still going to be the same. So if they have 2 years and they only serve a year of their sentence, they still can't vote until they get off supervision.
Okay.
But a lot of them do the whole 2 years
The
though.
max you do at the 2 years. I mean, at some of these state jails like Tula Unit,
Okay.
Garza, Garza West,
East and
Garza
West,
East, is 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
And,
max.
and while people are there, what is the conversation, Joel? Do people talk about voting? Do they talk about rights? When you hear things happen like the George Floyd incident, when in the prisons, when this kind of thing happens, and that there's discussion going on, what are some of the things what is some of the discussion, and do people realize that do they even make the connection that some of that is happening has everything to do with the laws that are in place and what people are what expectations are of certain entities, and whether or not they are living up to their expectations? What is the conversation? Do guys know that there's a connection between certain things that do or don't happen out there on the street and the people that we put in office?
You talking about while being up in there?
Yeah.
The conversation. I mean,
Or do they just get mad and just
well, mainly with brothers. They're more about Tom and Jerry and the football game, TV. Majority of them.
wow?
Now, and this is what I've seen. I mean, I've seen cats get bust upside the head behind. They want to watch Young and the Restless and General Hospital. These are brothers. Now, the white guys,
Mhm.
they be in the law library studying the law. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Analyzing law. You have some brothers that are brilliant, writers, and they be studying and
Yeah.
doing their research, but they're in the minority.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
See,
Wow.
the TV sets, I didn't, and to this day,
Yeah.
I'm not institutionalized, but I know what the TV is about. The TV is about being programmed and indoctrinated. Not to get off the subject, but I gotta say this.
Mm-hmm.
Adolf Hitler said, if you're gonna tell a lie, tell the big one. And keep repeating it over and over again. He said the intelligence of the masses of people is small or minute,
Mm-hmm.
and the forgiveness is great. They must be told the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
It's which equates propaganda.
Mhm.
So if you want to keep people,
Go ahead.
people basically asleep or preoccupied, just keep repeating the same. The TV set.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's
There's
kind of
riots in prison behind the TV set, and brothers are not trying to study the law and analyze the law and know language and so forth. But white boys as well as Spanish too. They're in the law libraries.
okay. Now this is one thing that Quincy spoke to last week when he was here. He said, people don't realize this, but of the people who are incarcerated, only 5% are lifers. Everybody else at some point is coming out. And if that is the case, then there needs to be a huge educational system that's going on so that people know how to be responsible in society as far as their rights are concerned once they are released. Because if you don't, Kim has a saying, and Kim, what is your saying? That if you don't vote, what happens?
Oh, if you don't own your vote, someone owns you. And I think a lot of times people are not necessarily, they don't necessarily have this information for a reason. And it's not going to be something that is coming from the top down. It's going to come from the
Bottom
grassroots up.
Yeah.
So that means that people like Lakedra,
Mm-hmm.
who I just mentioned, also said people there are incarcerated want to be empowered and informed, and it is our responsibility to provide them with the tools and resources. So that means us.
Yes.
Our
The
responsibility.
community. The
not,
community.
Not necessarily the governor or the president
Or TDC,
or the mayor,
Jay, yeah.
or TDC or anything like that. Because
Right.
a lot of times entities have vested interest in not having this information
Available.
disseminated.
Right.
Exactly.
So we have to understand that
It's
if
going to
we
be up
start
to
from
us.
That's
Yeah.
right. If we start from that basis, then at that point we're not just, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, I'm clutching my pearls because we don't have this information. No, a lot of times people don't want you to
It's
have
not
it.
in someone
So-
else's best interest that
that's
you have
right.
that
so it's in
information.
our power to educate ourselves and
That's
our
right.
people who are dear to us.
That's right.
And can I?
Yes.
So I noticed a lot of black men in prison in 2008 took a keen interest in the politics because of
Obama.
President Obama.
Mhm.
So what that led to was a lot of the men started doing a deep dive into the history of liberalism and conservatism.
Okay.
So I was actually in a writing class, and a gentleman wrote a piece about why conservatives fight so hard to keep felons from voting. So you have to identify who's the loudest on we don't want them voting.
Right.
Because when you take a deep dive into conservatism, I won't do that here,
Right.
you can see some ugly truths, not just about conservatism, but liberalism as well.
Right.
But you normally hear the loudest shouts from conservative states, Florida, Texas, Alabama. So the issue is, why are they screaming the loudest? Why do you not want people to have their voting right restored?
Right.
Or why do you not want them voting in prison? You see, so.
And in the nutshell, what has that reasoning been?
If you know the party,
Yeah,
doesn't serve your best interest, there's
right.
no way in the world
that you want them
would
to have
vote
the
for them.
power. Yes.
But however, on the individual, you have to be able to separate the individual from the institution.
Absolutely.
Because we can't just sit here and say every conservative is racist and every
right.
liberal is not. That's not
correct.
That's not true.
That's right.
You have to take a vested interest in what is this candidate running on? How is this going to positively and negatively affect me
Right.
and my family?
Right.
Because as long as everybody, and this happens on both sides of the aisle,
Right.
keep voting in a monolith, nothing's going to change.
That's right. That's right.
You see, so educating yourself about not only the party but the candidate in
Yes.
that area, and we have to, we talked once before. It's become inconvenient for a lot of people. We have to be like, look, that's just part of the process.
Right.
Here's what's in place, and let's go with it.
Okay.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah, pardon me.
Uh-huh.
I want to say this too. A lot of us, as human beings, particularly black people and brown people, but black people, we always want to, rely on, okay, we can vote and put people or help people in, we help put Obama,
Mhm.
okay, and individuals like himself. But you can't always rely on them to do all the work.
You can't really. No.
You gotta do that. You gotta do something for yourself as well.
That's right.
Don't be the donkey.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That carry the books. You gotta do the work. You gotta do your research. You gotta, study. They say that if you want to hide something from a black man or black people, put it in a book. And we have to do our research.
Yeah.
Me, I have a niece, and she's very inquisitive and she asks questions.
Uh-huh.
So my thing, what I want to do with her before she's 8 years old, I want to give her a dictionary
Mm-hmm.
and a thesaurus. if I'm
Yeah,
pronouncing it
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
so she can get a head start.
Right.
You know what I mean? Malcolm X, when he was incarcerated, he studied. We all did.
Right.
know? In there, I look. Not to get off the subject. Prison is a good place for a man to actually have time to dig within himself and do research. We
Yeah.
have time. We still have time.
A lot of reflection has to go on when you have that
Exactly.
kind of time.
Exactly.
And when you have that limited space like that. Let me ask you gentlemen this, and you can kind of, whoever wants to answer this first can kind of jump in because we don't have a lot of time, but I do want to touch on this. Okay, we know that we know now that individuals that we vote for and place in positions of making the direct laws that affect our everyday lives make a huge difference in making our communities a safe place to live and thrive. Have you experienced any situation personally that you feel is a direct reflection of good or bad laws being placed on the books? If so, tell us about it. I know you want to speak to that, Joel, and I want you to speak to it because you had something happen in your life a couple of years ago that may have had been a reflection of bad laws being on the book.
You want to talk about that?
You don't have to go into detail, but
yeah. Um, I lost my only child in murder, my son, and I'm still dealing with that.
right,
And of course, I lost my mother recently.
right,
This is not a pity party, but if what Greg Abbott did, and I'm gonna boldly say this, that was stupid. Um, that law right there, it didn't affect Louisiana because that's when my son was killed.
mm-hmm.
But what happened to him is happening right now.
You mean the gun laws?
The gun laws. Houston, I believe, is like the number one. Is number one in regards to homicide.
Yeah, it didn't used to be that way.
So I don't know if he was. I don't know. I think he lacked judgment, but to some degree, I have my opinion why he did what he did.
Right.
And I let people figure that one out.
Okay, and I wanted you to speak to that because, and I want people to hear this, and this is something coming from someone who was formerly incarcerated. He's saying that is something that may need to be revisited, and we see it everywhere now. I'm a Houston native, and I've been here all my life, and what I've seen is so much crime that's out there, and people being slapped on the wrist for things that are horribly violent crimes. And it all kind of gets pinned back on judges. But I sat and I talked with a judge one time, and this was interesting. The judge told me, she said, sometimes our hands are tied because of the laws that are on the books. And if people don't really know exactly what those laws are, then it's very, very easy to point that finger and say that judge is just out of line. But if you have laws on the books that demand that certain things happen with certain types of crimes, and the frequency of a certain type of crime with a certain individual, then you've got to follow the law.
Let me jump in here too.
Yes.
Also, I think we need to make a clear distinction between a lot of the people who are getting slapped on the wrist and where they call it the rotating, revolving door, with people who are like these folks who have been formerly incarcerated and who say, no, do not associate the two.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, a lot of times people associate the two. They don't know the distinctions. And because we've talked and we've spoken and we, have agency with these folks, we know the distinctions, but please tell us, what you all think of this whole situation for a revolving door, and make them understand this is not something that you all have any kind of, agency with.
Well, a revolving door, I thought kind of went away with some laws being passed in the 1990s.
Right.
But just on the surface level, you could say that they're just setting you up to fail. We'll give you 2 years here. You mess up again. All right, we'll give you 5. You come back again. You may not see society again.
Wow. Okay.
So, and I actually have a friend who told me, and it blew my mind at first. We were locked up. He came to prison with a 3-year sentence.
Okay.
And he said he didn't learn anything. He got in trouble again and came back with 25 years.
Wow.
And his exact words were, if they would have gave me this quarter first,
I never would have come back. That's what we've heard a lot of our people from the roundtable say, that the guys who go in 2 or 3 years, they may or may not even learn anything. But when you have had to be there 10, 15 years, you're making a plan in your mind of what you're going to do when you get out so that you never have to see that situation again. Can you speak to that a little bit about, your thoughts on the revolving door?
I think the revolving door comes when there's situations like the reform that's supposedly going on. 'Cause I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
Because reform happened when I was labeled a super predator. I
Wow.
received five
Yeah.
25-year sentences run concurrent. That was reform.
Yeah.
Reform is going on now when they're saying, give everybody a chance, let them out. It
Right.
still falls under reform. So it's no balance. It's no, okay, let's be consistent in our justice, whatever justice is.
Right.
But justices will never be consistent
Right.
because you have a red and a blue,
Right.
you have a white and a black. So
Right.
it will never be consistent. So the revolving door is just an element of what we determine what justice is. So it's going to continue to be revolving, open or shut. It's like it's never going to be like, let's lock the door at this time and open it up at this time.
Right.
It's always going to be something that's just an element of
Right.
what the justice system is.
Okay. Since we don't have a whole lot of time, guys, I want to circle back around to this. I know that I want to make sure that I connect with and Kim, I think Miss Lakedra said something else on there, and she mentioned an organization. What was the name of the organization?
You
see it?
Rashawn is on
Sasha
there.
Rashawn
Leggett
Justice Journey.
and
Okay.
Rashawn
Okay.
Justice Journey are the founders. They went to the county jail and
Yes.
registered individuals that were in the county jail
Okay.
to vote.
Okay.
So
Excellent crew.
Yes.
yes. So yeah, I'm sure that you're probably going to reach out to them.
Right.
Right.
And
Mhm.
also Damion's organization too, because you all do you do voter registration and you do a lot of education to people about what their rights are and what we need to be looking at prior to going to register to vote. This table that we're sitting at right now, with the exception of myself and Kim, I want people to see this. It was very important for people to see this. And it was very important for them to see my guests that were here last week, because I want you to know that despite everything that happens when a young man makes a mistake and goes into jail or into prison, that on the other side of that, this is what we're looking at right here. Many times. What was the place and time, Damion and Kyle and Joel, that you said, this is the direction that I want my life to go in now?
The fork in the road.
Yes.
Two things for me. When I was in prison, I used to think that I was going to die because of the prison that I was at. I was at a place called John B. Conde. So I knew that I was going to die for many years.
It was that dangerous.
It was that dangerous.
Wow.
So I ended up going to a place called Central, which was the easiest prison in Texas. And probably about after my third year there, I just was sitting down and said, I'm not going to die. Wow. Because it was so easy. You could see the airport. You could see freeways.
Okay.
Other place you couldn't. And then I recently discovered, literally within the last 3 weeks, because I was a kid when I got incarcerated,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a lot of vices. So I may be different from a Kyle or a Joe who had experienced life.
Right.
So my path is different because I didn't have a lot of vices. I didn't have a lot of pain besides not having my mother anymore.
Right.
So I didn't have things to run back to like a lot of other men did.
Okay.
So mine was a little bit different than somebody else's.
Okay. Joel,
What was the question?
what was the fork in the road that made you know that when you got out, you weren't coming back?
The vision.
Yeah.
Vision. I mean, I think because my goal one day to this day,
Yeah.
is the Guinness Book of World Records. That's
Okay.
just one of them. So I have a vision. The vision was to be great.
Right.
Training in there. I trained every day for 15 calendar years.
Right.
I mean, I did to this day at
Yeah.
50. I still do whatever I put my mind to do.
Right.
So not trying to boast or brag. It's just vision.
Okay.
Straight up being creative, sculpturing, and just grinding every day, raw.
Okay. And Kyle, what about you? Where was that fork in the road?
My fork in the road was in 2007
Mm-hmm.
when I finally got a chance to go leave the Styles Unit in Beaumont to go to Ramsey
Okay.
in Rosharon
Okay.
to get my bachelor's degree.
Okay.
In the course of that higher learning,
Mm-hmm.
wow, this isn't the life anymore,
Okay.
because Mark Stiles had a reputation of being ultra violent and a party place at the same time.
Wow.
It's that's another story for another day. But you could get so caught up in prison life over there, you might not want to leave. So I got a chance to
Wow.
get to higher education, and I could see my mother more often.
Right.
And what really drove the point on when she passed away in 2011,
Okay.
I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And I had years to go.
Yeah.
But hopefully people mature in
Yeah.
prison. And unfortunately, a lot of men don't. But with maturity comes wisdom, and you just have to not to want to do it anymore.
You see another life in
Right.
front of you than you. So when people are there for life, do you see changes made with people who are there for life, or are you not even in the same area as those people who are there for
You
life?
always in the same area.
Yeah, in the same-
You're in the same area, and they do change just depending on because they know they have to live the rest of their life in here. So just depending on what they want, you still stay out their way now because
Yeah.
they know that they have to be here for a long time. So those are the people that you really don't
They
mess
have
with.
nothing to lose.
Yeah, they have nothing to lose, but they still want to make sure that this is their life and they understand that and let me live the best I can while I'm here.
Okay. Um, Kyle, if people need to reach out to you, if they want to make sure that they start getting their financial uh, uh, um, business in order, how would they reach out to you to try to start making sure that their credit is where it needs to be so that they can take the steps that they need to better their lives?
You can go to www.ucespp.net/K Matthews. There's only one T in my last name. That will take you to the site where you'll get a comprehensive overview on how you can build, grow, and protect your credit and your finances.
And you earned your bachelor's degree while incarcerated.
I did.
Awesome. Damion, if people need to reach out to you, and I'm gonna connect with you later because I can see that there's probably a lot of things that I could learn and go and doing what I'm trying to do from your organization. Tell me one more time about your organization, and if people want to connect, what do they need to do?
Cognitive Justice International. Cognitive Justice International is a nonprofit that was founded to focus on solutions for justice issues. And you can connect with me on www.cji.name.name. So www.cji.name.
Okay, thank you. And Joel, if people want to connect with you, or if they do, you ever show your art in shows, or do you have any shows coming up,
Not yet.
or for your training? How do they connect?
I mean, if they want to connect with me through training, they can reach me. I don't have them alphabets yet.
Okay.
None of that. None of that yet. You can reach out to me through Instagram or my YouTube channel, Straight Out of Lava Bottom.
Okay. So, and what I'll do is make sure that I post the information for all three of these gentlemen and the organizations that they represent. Guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks
It
for
was
having me.
last minute. Thank you so much, Lakedra, for letting me know about Damion. This has been so enlightening, so
Needs to be another
enlightening.
show.
Yes, and we're gonna have to do a
Yes,
second,
come back.
a second part, because we want to actually, we were gonna try to get Joel registered today. We're gonna have him come back, but when he comes back, we're gonna go ahead and have him bring some of his art, because I would like to show that. Okay, you never know. You never know, Joel. You could have a show coming up sometime soon here where people see your art. But guys, thank you so much. I'll make sure that I post the information for my guests in on my Facebook page so that you can reach out if you need to reach out to them. Kyle, Damion, Joel, thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for tuning in. I see we had a steady amount of people watching this time. I appreciate that. Please, if you have any other questions, message us, reach out to my guests, and we will bring them back because we want to have a voter registration drive of people who have been formerly incarcerated, and we want to get the ball rolling to that. I would like to get, this is a lofty goal, but that's okay. I would like to get 10,000 people registered to vote before November. Okay. Can it be done? It can be done.
Yes.
Yes, it can be done, but it's going to take not just me, but a lot of people working together. You have strength in numbers, and you have power, and your vote matters. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you next week on Crystal Loves Texas. Thank you. See you later, guys.